Why don't you start
All right.
playing things?
Usually we have about 8 students. Today we have 3, but I suspect that a couple more may come. But don't be discouraged because there's some good students here. Today, what we have here is Professor Caton. He teaches history at Roberts Wesleyan College, and he brought with him 3 very intelligent and wonderful students that are going to share with us about Lincoln. And remember, the focus of our first unit is all about the Civil War. It's about slave narratives. It's about where we were with freedom as a country in that time period in the late 1860s, early 1870s. We read a wide variety of pieces. And so they're going to fill in our knowledge and give us a little bit more knowledge about Abraham Lincoln. And you know that we already started learning about Lincoln a little bit when we worked on his second inaugural address. So, and by the way, Professor Caton is my husband.
Thank you.
That's what I agree.
Miguel.
Sure. And then Rodrigo is going to help by saying some Spanish.
Oh, okay, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Rodrigo.
He's
Miguel has only been here. He only speaks.
I know, I already met him.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's great.
We're buds.
That's great.
Yeah, we met in the
That's
hall.
great.
So he knows what he's.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'll be
So,
quiet.
what I do is teach this course just on Abraham Lincoln. So it's a whole course for the semester for half a year, just on his life. That's all we're doing. We don't do anything else. So we know that you are studying the second inaugural address, which was given only a little more than a month before Mr. Lincoln was shot. And our class isn't even there yet in the book, but we know about the speech and stuff. But what these students are going to do is, as Mrs. Caton said, give you maybe their own perspective on Lincoln's life and his character that will help you better understand the speech. Because we know this is an English class, it's not a history class, but it's where history and English come together. So we have a class of 18 students that do this Lincoln class every 3 days a week. And I chose these 3 students because of their knowledge and their ability to communicate well. And Luke here is they're all juniors in college. That means they're in their 3rd year of college. Luke is studying to be a social studies teacher. And Tegan is, so he's an adolescent history major guy. And Tegan is a history major who is aspiring to be a professor herself someday. Luke is from this area. Tegan is from Texas, as she may mention. And then Rodrigo Turelio is from Bolivia and is a very good soccer player, by the way. So these are the top students that I have to give you so that they can each give little presentations. And before today, before the first period class when they gave their presentation, I didn't know what they were going to say at all. They worked out their own thing, how they wanted to do it, and they cooperated with each other so that there wasn't, tons of overlap and stuff, and so that they could do stuff that would really help you. So I'll start out with Luke. He'll do his thing first.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi.
I haven't done this yet, but I feel like the class is so small, I should just ask for your guys' names, if you don't mind. Start with you.
Albert.
Albert, nice to meet you.
Shatira.
Shatira, nice to meet you.
Eli.
Hey Eli. And what's your name?
Cornell. Miguel.
Miguel, nice to meet you guys. Listen, I'm here to speak about Lincoln, and we're going to get to that, but I wanted to start out by giving a list of the last 5 presidents, and I want you guys to kind of see if there's any similarity between the information that I give that corresponds to these presidents. We'll start with Joe Biden, obviously the current president. Joe Biden was born into a stable middle-class household, and he attended a private school. Donald Trump was born into a very wealthy family. His father was extremely wealthy, especially as he got older, and he's actually quoted in saying that his father gave him a small loan of $1 million.
Oh.
Crazy. Obama attended a private school in Hawaii, which is a very expensive state, and he went on to attend Columbia and Harvard universities, which are also, very expensive and good schools. George Bush, the second one, of course, his father was president of the United States. And then for Bill Clinton, he was married to a great politician and lawyer who helped him immensely in his political and legal career. What do you guys think are some similarities between these presidents?
They're wealthy.
They're wealthy, right? They were probably all born into pretty good positions, right? I think that Lincoln, unlike these presidents and the vast majority of presidents in American history, was not given a silver spoon. He was not born into a great position in life. He was a self-made man who overcame many obstacles and hurdles throughout his life. I'm just going to lay down some facts for you guys. Lincoln was born in 1809. Obviously, during this time, there was no real technology as we think of it today. No source of information other than books or newspapers. No smartphones, no computers, no email, no Google, no YouTube, no podcast, no Siri, no Wikipedia, no ChatGPT. The absence of these technologies made gathering information significantly difficult for people who lived during this time. And frankly, because of the need for these accessories, most Americans were relegated to laborious jobs such as industry, kind of working or farming. And just as a quick side note, Lincoln's dad was actually a farmer, and Lincoln kind of recognized that this was a very hard job, physically and mentally, on his father, and he kind of understood that he didn't want to go down that route in life, and so he decided to become educated. This brings me to my next point. Lincoln actually only received 9 months of formal education, and yet he was brilliant, very well spoken, he had great memory skills. He memorized this very long poem, it's called Mortality. It's 14 stanzas long, and it's 600 or 700 words, something in that vicinity. And we actually had the opportunity to try and memorize it in class. Some of us did well, others did not, but it's a hard task, and Lincoln took it upon himself to kind of hone in the skill of memorization and also kind of rhetoric, because he recognized the importance of these things.
And I'll just add here that these students just had a test on Monday where they had to just have a blank sheet of paper and write out that whole poem.
I think we should do that. What do you guys think?
Want to do that someday? With 54 lines. And they're doing it because that was so much a part of Lincoln's brain and his psyche. And he used that poem through his life. So, and they're going to have another chance at it too for the final exam in December, where it can be chance number 2 to do a good job. But all 3 of these students did what I would say is a very fine job writing out that entire poem. And that's honing a skill that Lincoln had that we, me included, don't have as much, because we've got so much other technology that we feel that we don't really need to memorize things like they used to do, right?
That's true. You have a pretty good memory, though, I must say.
Mediocre.
Yeah. Better than mine. While on the point of kind of memorization and rhetoric, Lincoln recognized that these skills were important, but particularly because they kind of were related to his field of study, what he wanted to do. When Lincoln was about 20, he decided that he wanted to become a lawyer, and things were indeed different back then, and I'm not trying to say that they weren't. I want to be respectful to the differences. But the qualifications today to be a lawyer are you got to go to school for 13 years, public school, of course, K-12. Then you got to go to college, which usually takes 4 years, 3 years if you're lucky. Then you got to go to law school, which takes up to 3 years, and it requires like 40 hours of studying a week. It's crazy. And then on top of that, you got to take the bar exam, which 40% of people fail upon their first time taking it. And then you got to do state-specific requirements and internships and apprenticeships and all of these things. And Lincoln became a lawyer despite his lack of formal education because of his grit and willingness to learn. These were kind of hurdles and obstacles that he recognized, but he wanted to go through them because of his passion and because he wanted to be a lawyer so much.
You know what I wanted to add to that, because you said that so well in the last class? It's not like in Lincoln's day, people just did that and sort of became lawyers even though they were self-taught. Most lawyers in Lincoln's day actually did have formal law education. So it's not just like, well, you're comparing apples and oranges, because back then, people really didn't need that. They were surprised that a guy like Lincoln could become a lawyer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Kind of on the topic of vocational training and that kind of thing, Lincoln worked as a county surveyor, which was a job that was probably more present back then than it is now. But it's basically, they just survey the town.
Wrong.
They just survey the town and they try and check out like properties and kind of the boundaries on each property. And while he was working as a surveyor, Lincoln recognized that he was having some trouble with the math and kind of he needed to do well at his job. And so he went to the library and he taught himself trigonometry. I don't know if you guys know trigonometry super well. I certainly don't. But I hear that it's a very, very hard type of math. Would you agree? Not hard?
Wow,
Yeah, I mean,
it's impressive.
you must be very good at math. I know that I probably couldn't do it, so that's very impressive. But the impressive thing about Lincoln in relation to him teaching himself trigonometry is that he didn't have a teacher. He went to the library and he got himself a book on trig, and he taught himself that, which I think is very, very impressive, especially because he just wanted to teach himself the math so he'd be better at his job. And it wasn't his career. He knew that it was a short-term job, but I think that was very, very cool of him. My third point is that he was born dirt poor in a log cabin in the outbacks of Kentucky. Do you guys know what Lincoln logs are?
They never had a Lincoln log in their
No.
life.
So I used to play with them all the time as a kid, and they're basically just little like pieces of wood, and they have little slits in them, and you can make little like log cabins and stuff, kind of similar to like Legos. You know what they are, right? I used to think that they were called link-in logs because you link them together, kind of, but they're called Lincoln logs after Abe Lincoln, of course. And,
Because he lived in a log cabin.
because he lived in a log cabin, exactly. I think there's just something special about a guy who was born in a log cabin with no real utilities. You know, they're, like you said, the log cabin didn't have a floor. This was in literally the middle of nowhere, went on to become president of the United States. The fourth point that I want to make, and this is my final point, is that Lincoln experienced immense tragedy throughout his life. His mother died when he was 9 due to milk poisoning, and that took a toll on his mental health. And then on top of that, his lover, Anne Rutledge, died when he was 22 years old. And this is really, according to many historians, the death that sent him into a Great Depression that stayed with him until his death. On top of that, he had 2 children die, and I just think all of this death that he experienced is really a testament to how you can overcome great tragedy in your life. So, these are just a few reasons that Lincoln is different from the majority of presidents, of course. We have this long list of presidents, and they were born into great situations, and they had financial stability, and they didn't have to deal with a whole lot, and Lincoln was different in that aspect. And I think that Lincoln's story is really engaging because it's a testament to no matter what you deal with or what you go through, you can still accomplish great things. And, I want to leave you guys with a quote. It goes, "You don't have to be born with a silver spoon to reach the brass ring." Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That was great. Remember, after everybody's done, you can ask questions of each individual person or however you want to do it. So now I'll turn it over to Rodrigo, who will give his talk about Lincoln.
Hello everybody, my name is Rodrigo. Today I'll be doing the presentation in Spanish and English. So here my friend Miguel can understand too. So let's get into it. Hi, my name is Rodrigo. I'm a pre-law student at Roberts Wesleyan University. I'm part of the men's soccer team. I come from Bolivia, which means I'm Latino. And I accepted the invitation to talk about Lincoln because I wish someone had shown me the life of this remarkable man earlier in my life. I'm excited about the opportunity to share some of the inspiring aspects of his life with you today, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hola a todos, soy Rodrigo Torrelio, soy un estudiante de pre-leyes en la Universidad de Roberts Wesleyan. Soy parte del equipo de fútbol, vengo de Bolivia, lo que significa que soy latino, y acepté la invitación a hablar sobre Lincoln porque me hubiese gustado que alguien me haya contado la historia de este hombre tan remarcable. Estoy emocionado de hablar sobre la vida de este señor con ustedes hoy, y espero que lo disfruten. Lincoln arguably holds the title for the greatest American president in history. But what truly makes him remarkable is how his life story exemplifies that idea that character is fate. Lincoln, para muchos, es el presidente más grande de los Estados Unidos en su historia. Pero lo que lo hace más remarcable es cómo su historia refleja la idea de que tu carácter o quien sos es tu destino. Abraham Lincoln's humble beginnings tell a tale of hardship and determination. Born into a poor family in Kentucky and later moving to southern Indiana, he faced numerous challenges. He lost his mother at just 9 years old, and the Lincolns, like many other hard-working families, constantly dealt with financial instability. This part of Lincoln struck a chord with my life. Since coming from Bolivia, a third world country, I witnessed countless individuals work relentlessly for insignificant wages, which is why I understood that being poor does not equate with the lack of hard work. Los orígenes de Lincoln son una historia de trabajo duro y bastantes obstáculos. Él nació en una familia pobre en Kentucky y pasaron unos cuantos años y se mudó al sur de Indiana. Como lo dije previamente, él tuvo muchos obstáculos en su vida, entre ellos la pobreza y la muerte de su madre cuando él tenía 9. Su familia trabajaba duro, no crean que no, pero aún así seguían teniendo problemas con la pobreza. Esta parte de Lincoln tocó mi corazón, porque como yo vengo en Bolivia, he podido ver que muchas familias trabajan durísimo y aún así reciben muy poco. Por eso es que yo entiendo que ser pobre no significa que no trabajas duro, pero el mundo es muy injusto. Lincoln too recognized that his back-breaking physical labor wouldn't let him out of his situation. His aspirations lay in education, a path he believed will take him to a brighter future. However, two significant obstacles stood before him. He was a young adult without formal education, and his father held traditional beliefs considering that education a pursuit reserved only for the rich and affluent. Despite these odds, Lincoln possessed the courage, tenacity, and discipline to chase his dream. At this stage, his dream was not necessarily to become a president or a lawyer, but simply to escape the harsh reality of his life. Lincoln también él sabía que el simplemente hecho de trabajar en la granja o el trabajo físico no lo iba a sacar de la pobreza, porque lo pudo ver en su padre. Sus aspiraciones iban más hacia la academia, hacia las letras, hacia el estudio, porque él sabía, él tuvo la visión de que eso lo iba a sacar de ese hueco. Pero él tenía dos obstáculos bastante grandes. El primero era que él ya era un joven adulto sin educación y que sus padres tampoco lo apoyaban, porque su padre pensaba que ese sueño que él tenía era absurdo, porque mucha gente cree que la gente pobre que busca una meta en la academia o en las letras es solamente para la gente rica. Pero igualmente Lincoln, con coraje, tenacidad y disciplina, decidió ir por su sueño. En ese punto de su vida, Lincoln no estaba buscando ser presidente, tampoco un abogado. Él simplemente quería salir de la pobreza, esa hambre de salir de ahí. Lincoln never had the privilege of attending prestigious institutions like Harvard or Yale, as many American presidents did. He did not even have the chance to go to high school. Instead, he embarked on a self-education journey. Slowly, he sharpened his intellect day by day, seeking knowledge from every source he could find, and this relentless determination is the essence of the character shaping destiny. Lincoln nunca tuvo la oportunidad de ir a universidades como Harvard o Yale, como la mayoría de los presidentes de este país tienen. En realidad ni siquiera tuvo la oportunidad de ir a high school como estamos acá. Y aún así, él decidió que por su cuenta él lo iba a estudiar y que por su cuenta él se iba a volver un hombre culto. Lentamente, pero consistentemente también, logró hacerse ese hombre. Esta determinación en perseguir su sueño es a lo que yo me refiero cuando digo que tu persona es tu destino. It's very easy to see what we don't have, consciously or unconsciously, and we use it as an excuse that sets us for failure. Lincoln didn't have any money or the support of his family, but he recognized that he had the character and the work ethic from his early days. He didn't have the opportunity to go to college, but he had books, and the rest is history. I don't know what y'all don't have. Although I do have one thing that I do know one thing that you guys have, which is this: the opportunity to go to school, the opportunity to learn, to educate yourself, and strive for new opportunities. Believe it or not, being here, it's a privilege. Es muy fácil ver lo que uno no tiene y quejarse de que él tiene esto, que el otro tiene lo otro. Pero conscientemente o inconscientemente, esto es solamente una excusa que nos hace perder. Lincoln no tenía plata ni tampoco el apoyo de su familia, pero él sí tenía el valor de trabajar, lo cual aprendió en su día cuando era joven en la pobreza. Él tampoco tuvo la oportunidad de ir a la universidad, pero tenía el libro y el resto es historia. Yo no sé lo que vos no tenés, porque no te conozco, pero sí sé una cosa que vos sí tenés, que es estar aquí, que es tener la oportunidad de ir al colegio, la oportunidad de aprender, de educarte y buscar nuevas oportunidades para ti y para tu familia. Y créemelo o no, eso es un privilegio. I want to close this little story by saying that Lincoln is a reminder that we must appreciate what we have and transform it into something beautiful. He reminds us to move forward even if our family is dragging us back. He reminds us that our character, who we are, is our destiny. Quisiera cerrar esta historia diciendo que Lincoln es un recordatorio de que deberíamos apreciar lo que tenemos y transformarlo en algo hermoso. Él nos hace recuerdo de que tenemos que movernos siempre hacia adelante, incluso si nuestra familia nos está jalando hacia atrás o nuestros amigos. También es un recordatorio de que nuestro carácter, nuestra persona, es nuestro destino. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias. All right, I'll turn it over to Tegan, who is going to give us a good visual overview of what's going on, especially in Lincoln's later political career.
Hey, well, like Dr. Caden said, my name's Tegan. I am history major. I'm from Texas, and I'm on the Roberts volleyball team. Woohoo! And I decided to take a different route. I kind of wanted to go over some of Lincoln's achievements through a presentation. So here's just a little overview of what I'm going to be discussing. I'm not really going much into detail. It's more so just the key points of these things. So first, Lincoln's first inaugural address, the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln's second inaugural address, and noticing just what kind of ideas are different and how Lincoln's ideology switched in between each of these. As you will see when we discuss the key points, a lot of these are very different from each other. So before we do that, I just want to give a little timeline just to help y'all understand everything and put it into perspective before I go into it. So on November 6th, 1860, Lincoln is elected into office. March 4th, 1861, Lincoln gives his first inaugural address. On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln delivers the Emancipation Proclamation. March 4th, 1865, Lincoln gives his second inaugural address. And June 19th, 1865 is when the last slaves were free, the day we know as today as Juneteenth. So just some key points of the first inaugural address is that it suspended the activity of the federal government temporarily in areas of hostility, so mainly in border states. Another key factor of what Lincoln wanted to do is obviously hold the Union together and prevent civil war. Coming into office, the last thing you want is for your whole country to be completely divided and on the brink of war with each other. Terrible circumstances. And probably the most important takeaway from the first inaugural address is that he promised not to interfere with the institution of slavery where it existed. But then we move into the Emancipation Proclamation, where he forever freed the slaves in the Confederate States only. This did not affect border states or Union states. This announced the acceptance of black men into the Union Army and Navy. calls for former slaves to avoid violence, calls upon them to work for a fair wage, an act of justice to win the war. In the second inaugural address, I know y'all have already gone over it, so this is probably just a refresh. It urged to bind up the nation's wounds and move towards a lasting peace. It led into Reconstruction, and those who tried to break away were treated with respect and compassion. The scourge of war was the divine punishment for sin of slavery. All Americans, North and South, were guilty. What we talked about in the earlier classes is that Lincoln really felt responsible for the war, and he really took accountability. So in the last, that the scourge of war was the divine punishment for the sin of slavery for all Americans. It really shows that he took the main accountability. So when we look at all of these different things, we see kind of a mush of all these different ideas. So I kind of wanted to put together Lincoln's view of slavery. So Lincoln is the great emancipator. He was anti-slavery, but mainly in terms of expansion. He did not want slavery to expand, but he obviously did not call for immediate emancipation. The phrase "all men are created equal" applied to all, not some in Lincoln's eyes. And overall, Lincoln opposed slavery, but he respected the words of the Constitution. Before the 13th Amendment, which was after Lincoln's death, the Constitution pretty much protected the state's rights for slavery. And I just found one of these speeches that Lincoln gave. He gave so many in his early career. This was given in Cincinnati in 1859. And I think that this speech really sums up his ideas pretty easily. I think slavery is wrong morally and politically. I desire that it should be no further spread in these United States, and I should not object if it should gradually terminate in the whole Union. But then later on, he also says, I say that we must not interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists, because the Constitution forbids it, and the general welfare does not require us to do so. So, what changed? What made him go from really respecting the words of the Constitution to emancipating just 2 years later? Popular answer. Issuing the proclamation, Lincoln hoped it would inspire black men and enslaved people in the Confederacy to support and join the Union Army. So, at the time, the Union Army really needed more soldiers, and issuing the proclamation, he basically stated that if black men come and help our the Union and help us fight, then if we win, you will be free, pretty much. And he added around 200,000 soldiers from that, which he needed. But I think that the main reason that he did this is just because of his leadership qualities. I think that a really big leadership quality is change and being able to change your ideas on a big scale. So one of Lincoln's most powerful and admiring strengths in terms of his leadership qualities is his ability to change. For him specifically is his ability to change as it relates to his public stance on slavery. People change, it's life, it's what makes them stand out, using the change to better his country. He knew slavery was morally wrong, he put his country's history aside and did what was right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, Mrs. Caton, can you remind me about when this class
We have
ends?
6 minutes left, so we have time for about 3 quick questions. So let's step right up and ask one of your questions.
And if you speak in Spanish, we can always get it translated.
Oh, you can also ask questions about college as well.
Yeah. So,
Is it hard? Is it easy hard or like hard?
College?
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the person. For me, I did find it easier than high school just because I had more time on my hands to be able to do all of my assignments. Because you go from, oh my gosh, how long is this? Like 8 hours? 8 hours of school to on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for me, I only have class for 50 minutes a day. So I have a lot of time on my hands, but it's really dependent on the person.
And like Luke said in our last class, it's all up to, it's kind of like up to you, right? And to you doing your schedule and setting up when you're going to study, because it's not like your teacher's going to be over you saying, now, have you studied this afternoon even though you don't have my class? The teacher is just expecting that on the next day
You'll be ready.
that you're ready, that you got it together. So that part of it's tricky, I think, in that way.
Especially if you're used to the other model where you have mostly classes. You gotta figure out your own plan.
Like
What
these,
else?
like these guys, I'll just say it briefly, you know, this Lincoln class that we're doing, I mentioned, it's only 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for 50 minutes a day.
Less than what we need for one class.
All right, less than what you mean, that's only 3 days a week. But the reading in it, they can tell you, is very significant. And so you've got to really, really keep up with this big, thick book. And I'm not hanging over their heads just saying, how are you doing with chapter 11? I'm just kind of assuming that they're working on it and that they're ready to go. And they know what they're doing.
For me,
Go ahead.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. For me, the reading has been like 2.5 hours a week. So, you know, that supplements the amount of time that we're kind of missing in class, if you will. But
Right.
I think in college, there's a lot less busy work, if you will. There's more reading, there's more writing, but you know, it's not like you're filling out worksheets or anything really in college. So if you like that kind of, you know, like project-based learning, I think, you know, it's easier
Yeah.
in that aspect.
Yeah, and a lot of my classes, like whenever they give out your syllabus, it already has all of your assignments on it and the requirements of each thing. So coming into the class, you already know everything that you're going to be turning in soon.
Who else would like to ask a question either about college or, go ahead, or the,
You said you're from Texas. What part of Texas?
I'm from Houston.
Houston.
we were,
I have a question. So, okay. So y'all know how y'all said that he went to law, like he was a lawyer, and how did he become a lawyer if he didn't go to college?
So things were definitely different back then, and I'm not aware on kind of how it was different, if you want to put it that way. But there were certain tests that they would have to, you know, pass, I would assume. And
right, he had to pass the bar exam, which made you a lawyer in Illinois, where he was from. All he had to do is pass that bar exam, but he had to do all his own reading instead of going to law school. The reason why people go to law school is so they can pass the bar exam. So he didn't go to law school, even though there were law schools back then. He just had piles of books that he worked through, but he actually had to take that test. It wasn't just like every man for himself. He had to take a test, which he passed, and that made him an official lawyer. And he had a piece of paper that said, Abraham Lincoln is now an official lawyer. But he never took a law class.
and today that would be
Never.
impossible.
And today would be kooky. Like you
You
couldn't
could though,
poss-
right? Couldn't you? I mean, if you tried, you could sign up and take it, right? Without having.
When I was doing my research, I read differently.
But that's a good question. I don't know
would
the
never do
answer.
that. You
And
can
it
look
may
it up.
vary- It may vary by state. It may vary by state.
That's true. Even back then, that
Right,
was
right.
incredibly difficult to do that.
Oh, yeah.
right?
It was very hard. Who else would like to ask a question? Well, yeah.
Lincoln, was he the only one that was fighting against slavery? Was there any other president ever that was fighting against slavery before Lincoln?
Before Lincoln, you have weird little deals like George Washington, our first president, didn't like slavery, even though he had slaves.
Right.
He kind of inherited them from his wife, who was a rich lady. She was a widow. And what Mr. Washington did was he freed his slaves in his will.
So
He didn't really work for it politically, but he was making a message that he didn't like it. But as far as I know, no other president fought actively against slavery before Mr. Lincoln on a political level. Many of them owned slaves, like Andrew Jackson and so on. So, what's that?
Jefferson.
And of course Jefferson did.
Sit down so that he's-
But I don't think that there was any president before Lincoln that even broached the subject of, I think we need to deal with this on a political level. Do you? Do you guys know anybody?
I don't think so.
Huh?
Something to think about.
If they did, they never would have gotten elected because we told the other class, and you guys know this, and I know you guys gotta go. No one in the South voted for Abraham Lincoln. Not one person. So you can see that that's